We spoke yesterday about the tension with Iran going into the first day of the UN General Assembly. Then before heading to the UN, Donald Trump tweeting that Hassan Rouhani was probably a lovely man, and he seems to have toned down a bit towards Iran during his speech. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, in terms of the rhetoric, certainly it was relatively tame by Donald Trump's standards, but then again, arguably the overall message is just as strong and fierce as it was before. Everyone's making the comparison with North Korea. Look what happened compared to Trump's speech last year at the UN and what's happened since. Last year, in his first address at the UN, Trump came out all guns blazing, threatening to totally destroy North Korea. And now here we are talking about a potential second summit. Will we have the same path ahead as concerns Iran? We knew that Iran was going to be the new enemy number one in Trump's speech, and sure enough it was. He described it as a corrupt dictatorship whose leaders sow chaos, death and destruction. He went on with a list of their alleged activities to justify his hostility, saying that the leaders plunder the world's resources to enrich themselves. They're engaged in an agenda of aggression and expansion, spreading mayhem. And he said that other Middle Eastern countries supported his decision to pull out of what he called this horrible nuclear deal and reimpose sanctions. But as for the rhetoric, yes, it was relatively toned down. There was fire and fury, though, but this time it came from his national security advisor, John Bolton, in another speech at the UN conference. Let's have a listen to what he had to say about Iran.
According to the mullahs in Tehran, we are the great Satan, lord of the underworld, master of the raging inferno. So I might imagine they would take me seriously that when I assure them today that if you cross us, our allies or our partners, if you harm our citizens, if you continue to lie, cheat, and deceive, yes, there will indeed be hell to pay. The murderous regime and its supporters will face significant consequences if they do not change their behavior. Let my message today be very clear. We are watching, and we will come after you.
We are watching and we will come after you. Indeed, strong words there by John Bolton. Meanwhile, the EU has been speaking about Iran as well, and more specifically about this nuclear deal, trying to save the nuclear deal. What is the US response to the European Union's attempts to salvage the nuclear deal with Iran?
Yes, we discussed yesterday at length the EU plan to try to keep the deal alive, and in particular this special payments plan to get around US sanctions on oil sales, enabling Western countries, European companies, I should say, to keep doing business with Iran. John Bolton said the US would be aggressive and unwavering in enforcing sanctions. He criticized the EU for being strong on rhetoric and weak on follow-through. He said their plan doesn't exist yet and there's not even a target date, and said, similarly to what he had to say about Iran itself, he said, we'll be watching. We won't allow the EU or anyone else to undermine US sanctions. Now,
generally, we heard that laughter, that unexpected laughter during Donald Trump's speech. That was quite interesting, an interesting moment. But overall, how has the speech been received?
Yes, I think it's as divisive as ever as far as Donald Trump is concerned. Now, this laughter came right at the start of the speech. He said, in less than 2 years, my administration has accomplished more than almost any other in the history of our country. Now, the laughter came from those who immediately thought, hang on, he's ripped up the accord on climate change, he's ripped up the Iran nuclear deal, and he's launched a trade war with China, as well as just generally disrupting the established world order. The laughter certainly reflects a sense that many feel less intimidated by Trump perhaps than they did before. But you could say, who's going to have the last laugh here? For many conservatives, they're going, look, the economy in the US is buoyant, although it could be disputed as to whether Trump has that much credit to take for that. And populists abroad may be going, we're inspired by what he had to say about sovereignty and patriotism. You know, the Orbans, the Erdogans, Duterte in the Philippines, perhaps a certain President Putin. Could it be that they're perhaps laughing with Donald Trump and not at him?